Pace certainly changes. I mean, for the first time in your life, you're not working to the clock. But the wonderful thing about retirement is it opens up all these new opportunities, and you rediscover those parts of yourself, because you are the sum of your whole parts.
Hi there and welcome to Pension Awareness Week's session on approaching retirement. If you've joined this webinar, your retirement is likely in sight, and while there's still time, it is important to get your head around what you should be doing and what you could be doing to ensure you have as smooth a journey as possible. You've likely worked hard for many years, so it's important your pension is sufficient to suit the lifestyle you want and deserve in retirement. A little planning can go a long way to reducing any anxiety, and it is always worth the effort. This session, designed exclusively for executives approaching retirement, aims to make your transition from work to retirement smooth and enjoyable by carefully considering the relevant issues. These are the topics we will be looking at today. What makes a successful retirement? How income in retirement works? How much you need for it? What to be mindful of at different stages of approaching retirement to avoid surprises, and pension options at retirement. Now, as we discuss these questions, it is important to say at the start that nothing we are talking about today is personal advice. When it comes to investments and pensions, everyone's situation is different, and we have lots of resources on the pensionsawarenessweek.ie website to help you to get advice for your specific situation. So let's kick it off. I am delighted to be joined to discuss these questions by a panel of experts from across the Irish pensions industry. I'm going to ask you all one by one to introduce yourselves and what you do.
I'm Paul Kenny. I work with the Retirement Planning Council of Ireland. I'm one of the course leaders there, so I help people in the transition to retirement get them ready for it.
You're very welcome, Paul.
Hi, Gráinne. I'm Alan McCarthy. I work for Standard Life, and we're a life savings company that specialises in retirement.
Thanks, Alan.
Hi, I'm Kellyanne Quinn, and I'm here on behalf of the LIA, but I have my own company, I'm a financial planner, and I work with life planning.
Hi, Gráinne. Declan Allen is my name. I'm from Allen Retirement and Finance. We're a specialist financial planning company as part of the MoneyCube group, and I'm here to advise in relation to financial planning.
You're all very welcome. So that we've all met now, let's start with what makes a successful retirement. Paul, I'm going to come to you first. What advice would you have for people in handling the change that comes with retirement? Because it is a big change.
It is a big change, but the first thing I always remind people of is their own experience of managing change. Because all throughout your life you've managed change. You've changed jobs, you've changed houses, you've had kids, all the things that you don't see as transitions, and yet they are. So the only thing that's constant actually is change. So you remind people that they have experience of managing change, that it's not something they should be phased by. It's something that's out there to be managed. There is a workaround that you can do. And to put the plans into place, because if you have a map, if you like, for your future, even if it's a generalized map, first of all, we get into the nitty-gritty of short-term planning later. But the long-term plan, a vision of what you'd like your future to be, and to put the building blocks into place to make sure that that comes to fruition.
I'm sure even that change of perspective that you just presented there is a great help to people straight away. It helps them to not have so much anxiety around it and to feel, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, we ask people how they feel about retirement. And some people feel apprehensive, some people are concerned, some people are quite happy. And then occasionally we get somebody's spouse who's retired 3 or 4 years earlier and says, I think it's bloody marvellous.
Yes. Come on in, the water's fine. Yes. Exactly. Okay, lovely. So if we want to talk about setting retirement goals, I'm going to come to you, Declan. How much do we need to retire on? Is that like asking? Yeah.
Well, that was a piece of string.
Exactly.
It's very much individual based. But, you know, to enjoy your retirement and to enjoy all the things that Paul will talk to you about, you really have to have the financial means to do that. And to do that, you need to plan well in advance. And there's a number of things you can do to help your journey. The pension side of your life after retirement is going to be made up of 2 elements. One is the social welfare element, and the other is the private pension element. And for the social welfare pension element, what you need to do, and you need to do this on a regular basis, but as soon as possible, learn how much you're going to have. Maybe contact the people in the social welfare department. They're up in Sligo. They're very accessible and they're very efficient, and they will advise you as to where you are on the scale in terms of how many contributions you've paid in and what your qualification is going to be at retirement age, whether you will reach the maximum or not. But if you do happen to reach the maximum, at this point in time in Ireland, it's about €13,000 per annum. And the same would apply to your spouse if he or she had been working during their lifetime and had made PRSI contributions. So assuming that both parties would have the maximum, you're looking at possibly an income of about €26,000. Now, where does the rest of it come from? The rest of it has to be made up by yourself, between yourself and your employer, or if you're an employer, if you're running your own business, you're going to have to fend for yourself. It's as simple as that. And you know, the sooner you start doing this, the better. But let's assume that you have been doing it. Let's assume you're about 10 years from retirement age. What can you do to enhance your situation? And there's a number of issues. The first one is to look at the contribution levels that you're putting in. We won't go into it today, Grania, but there are limitations as to the revenue set down as to what those are. But this is where you would bring in the financial planning side of it. You can find out those exact limitations by talking to somebody who's in that position. But you know, people may have heard of things like additional voluntary contributions. Additional voluntary contributions would be where an individual would like to enhance their fund at retirement age. And it's very important that people understand that the amount of money that is required to have a decent lifestyle at retirement age, it's a significant amount of money. The maximum that you're allowed to have at retirement age in a pension fund is €2 million. And what will €2 million give you? In today's terms, we have what's called an annuity rate, which is a rate applied to the amount of money that you would give to an insurance company, who in return will give you a pension. But effectively a pension, on today's rates, you would probably get somewhere in the region of €110,000 as a pension based on a €2 million pension fund for somebody who retiring today at 65 years of age. So that gives you some idea of the extent to which you have to build up that fund. You are entitled also to take some tax-free cash out of the fund, but the maximum you can have is €200,000 tax-free, with a further 300,000 taxed at 20%. So these issues are something you need to look into well in advance.
Kelly, and I'm sure there are people watching with their hearts in their mouths going, oh, I haven't done anything. Is it ever too late to actually get on the road and start doing this for yourself and not be depending on the state pension?
No, it's never too late. First thing I would do is pull out, people get benefit statements from their pension companies, might have different pots from different employments. First thing I would do is pull that out and go to an advisor and sit down and get somebody to explain. People don't understand their pensions. It comes in the post, they're like, what's this? I don't know what that means. And the important thing is, what do I have now? What's already there? and what will that give me at retirement? And an advisor will help look forward and then look back and say, right, what do we have to do to get there? And they look at all your assets and liabilities. If you're a business owner, they look at exit strategies, they look at tax relief, they'll work with your accountant. There's lots to do, but it's never too late to start, but you need to get planning as quick as possible. That is the most
That's really, really
Yeah.
important. Alan, I love what you call sort of that time after retirement, the second life.
Second life, yeah.
And you talk about the 3 pillars as well. Explain what they are.
Yeah, we refer to retirement as your second life. And I think, you know, to build on something that Paul mentioned, retirement has changed over the last number of years, where 20 years ago it used to be a bit of a destination. Now it's very much a process of change, and it's a positive change. But if you, and I'm sure Kellyanne and Declan have retired hundreds, if not thousands of customers, and we do a lot of research, and the research comes back again and again. While it's individual, there are building blocks. So the first one is, Declan's already mentioned it, the financial plan. That's key. And that's all about having choice to maintain your lifestyle, you know, to be able to do what you want with who you want for as long as you want. And it's critical to the plan. But we need to look at retirement, our second life, in a little bit more holistic way as well. So the other 2 pillars are very important. It's socially connected and it's being purposely busy. So if you think about the socially connected aspect, I'm sure everyone here, we're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. When that suddenly turns off, there's a big part of your life that's suddenly gone, and that social connectivity you need to keep up. Being purposely busy, you know, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's sport, there's no doubt that people who have a purpose post their retirement do better. So it's just looking at these attributes, and it's making sure that people are thinking about these attributes before they retire, before, you know, the journey to, through, and then after.
I like that idea that it's not a destination, it's a process, because we are living longer.
Absolutely.
Some of us are living healthier lives as well. So it can't just be a sort of like a guillotine almost coming down on your life and then sort of a yawning chasm, and how am I going to fill it?
No.
You need to start imagining that for yourself, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, you're going to have an extra 2,000 hours a year. So how are you going to fill that? Like, don't get me wrong, we'd all love 3 weeks off and it's great fun, walk the dog, walk the beach, etc. But after a while, that becomes a little bit unfulfilling.
Yes.
So what we're seeing now is a lot of people are almost sampling retirement. They're trying it out. They're going to 3 days a week. They're being retrained. They're doing different jobs. But that doesn't happen when you wake up on a Monday morning. You need to speak to a financial planner. You need to look at the financial side of things. But you also need to consider other aspects. What are you going to do with those 2,000 hours?
Yes. Apart from the 2,000 hours, Declan, you know, that worry about how am I going to pay for myself. You know, we did touch on it with Kellyanne about being a late starter when it comes to a pension. Is there a way that you can actually give yourself a decent standard of living if you are coming to it late in the game?
Well, I suppose everybody's desire is to try and retire on something akin to what you were earning just prior to your retirement age. And funding for pensions is probably the most tax effective item today in this country. Tax relief is virtually gone on most other things, and it is a very attractive proposition for you to invest in a pension fund. You will get tax relief at your top marginal rate, and you won't get that anywhere else. So yes, I mean, anybody who hasn't funded for a pension, it's never too late. It's never too late to put something in, even if it's just a fund to get some tax-free cash out at the far end.
Yeah.
Because you're entitled, as a business owner, you might get 1.5 times your final salary out of the company before you retire. As an individual, you could get up as much as €200,000 out of a pension fund, tax-free, and a bit more on the taxable side. So yes, I would encourage anybody who hasn't made a contribution to a pension fund to talk to a financial advisor as soon as possible and try and make that lifestyle a little bit better, because you know, at the moment we're living such better lifestyle because of advances in technology, advances in medical sciences, advances in nutrition and so on. And you know, every year the mortality table that is produced by the Institute of Actuaries seems to increase and increase. We're now at a situation where the average male or female retiring at age 65 will probably live on average for another 23.5 years. So I mean, you have to try and fund that lifestyle, unless you're going to be stuck on the state pension as your only means of income.
Yeah. Paul, you know, we're talking about the financial aspect of planning for retirement, which is obviously very important. But what are the non-financial pieces of the puzzle that we also need to be thinking about?
The non-financial pieces are extremely important. First of all, there is, as Declan mentioned, the social aspect, because you're going to lose contact with an awful lot of people when you retire. And you know, some of the people you won't want to meet again, that's fair enough, but there are other people that you will miss, the colleagues that you worked with, the people that you met in the course of your work that you served while you were working. So those people are going to vanish, because the people who are still working don't have the same time as you have. The 24/7, 365, they're well occupied.
Yes.
And they won't have the time to give you. So keeping your social circle going is vital, and that's where friends and family come in, and it's also where the activities that you undertake in retirement come in, because I don't know anybody who ever gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to join a new social circle.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
it doesn't.
It happens because you do stuff.
Yes.
You go out and you take up hobbies, you take up activities, you maybe volunteer, you take up part-time work. You do things in retirement, and those things bring you into contact with new people. People who, first of all, you've never met before, and secondly, who have no preconception about you, coloured by the things you used to do when you were working.
Oh, it's like creating a brand new identity for yourself. Oh, look at that face. So, okay, we'll come back to you and your spine network later. So if we look at some of the practical aspects of planning for retirement, what should our priorities be, Kellyanne? Like we spoke in another session earlier about how to invest your money during your working life. How should we invest our pension after we retire?
Oh, after we retire.
Yeah.
One,
What are our options there?
Well, your options at retirement, there's different options, and there's no one way for everybody. So your fund at retirement will give you a tax-free cash lump sum, or you can buy the traditional type annuity, which pays you the pension every month until you die, or there could be a spouse's benefit attached to that. Then you've got an approved retirement fund, which is a post-retirement pension investment. And these are terms that you shouldn't be just getting familiar with on the day of retirement. This is something you should be talking about minimum 5 years before retirement. I like to even start at the first day when I set up a pension with someone and talk about the end and explain the retirement process. So when you're getting there, you're understanding what's suitable for my lifestyle. And health is a big factor when it comes to that, which option is best for people. But yeah, it's just important that they are aware of the terms and knowing what way their money's going to go and what suits their needs.
You know, when people talk about investment, and we talked in the other session as well about all the investment choices that we have, there is perception that people should be reducing their risk as they near retirement age. Do you think that's a good idea?
I'm going to sit in the fence a little bit, because the answer isn't clear, and it's a bit like what Kellyanne was saying. It depends really on your choice. So if you are funding for long-term, our view is that you should always have an exposure towards equity. It gives you the best chance to outperform, in particular to avoid the risks of inflation. However, as you're approaching retirement, there's absolutely an argument for making sure that a portion of your fund is orientated towards cash, because as Declan said earlier on, you're entitled to take up to 200,000 or 25% of your fund tax-free out. So very often people, as they're 5 years out, will start orientating a little bit towards cash. And what that does is the year that you're going to retire, it reduces any risk of a market fluctuation taken away from your cash. But
So that is being safe and smart at the same time.
it's being safe and smart at the same time. And this is what you do in conjunction with your financial advisor. And remember, everyone's investment portfolio is unique to themselves and their risk profile, their tolerance and their capacity. I know we're throwing a lot of jargon in here, but this is where it's important you have that conversation. Ultimately, what decides how you orientate your portfolio is if you're going down the annuity or the R fruit. So if you're going towards an annuity, very often you move towards safer government bonds, cash-like investments. If you're going down the R fruit, typically you stay.
ARF stand for?
ARF is a approved retirement fund.
Okay.
So it is the same bucket of assets you have pre-retirement, but it goes to post-retirement. And instead of accumulating into it, you start decumulating out of it, so start taking income out of it. And that's really the only difference.
So it can still be working for you.
Oh, absolutely. So you could be, as Declan said, 23 years, you could have those assets. So anything long term, you need to make sure you've got a good split of assets that's going to give you a return.
The only way really you're going to figure this out is by sitting in front of somebody, isn't it, really?
And the good news is, Grania, that you know we've had this situation in this country for many years in the pensions industry, that we clutter it all up with jargon, and it's very confusing for everybody. The good news, I would say to you, is that finally, I think we've come to a situation where over the next couple of years, we're going to transition across to a much simpler system, which is much easier for everybody to understand. It's not for today to explain that, but it is coming. It's effectively called a PRSA, a personal retirement savings account. It's going to be an all-encompassing vehicle to stop the confusion for everybody, and there will be big advantages in that area. Standard
When
Life.
is that coming? When?
Well, it's already there. It's already there. It has to be finalised.
Okay.
But basically, a lot of the jargon will be taken away. A lot of the confusion will be taken away, and I think the people will be much more inclined to look at pensions and funding for pensions because of this. I think there's going to be a huge change in the Irish pensions market because of it, to make things simpler.
That's wonderful. Alan, I want to come back to you because in the meantime, while we are dealing with the more complicated,
Yes. Yeah.
sophisticated situation that we're in, inflation, it's impossible to ignore it. How is that affecting people's pensions, both before and after they retire? And, you know, should they be adjusting their thinking in respect of setting goals when you look at inflation and as it is now?
Yeah, well, simply put, you should always have inflation built into your financial plan. We're obviously going through a period of heightened inflation at the moment, and everyone is conscious of it. We see it in our pockets every day. But if you're saving for a pension pot of 100,000, 500,000, or even 2 million, at the end of the day, the pension pot today, in 20 years' time, is going to have a lot less purchasing power. So that's why you need to build it into the plan today. And that's why we'd always suggest if you're talking more than 7 years, you need to orientate your investment portfolio or pension portfolio towards equities, because that's one of the best hedges against inflation. So just to make sure that you're mitigating that risk as much as you can. If you're going down the cash and government bond route, you're increasing the risk that inflation will have a negative impact on your fund.
Okay, so we are toddling towards retirement. The time has arrived and you're about to fill your cardboard box for the last time and leave the office. Paul Kenny, what is your experience briefly in seeing people transition into retirement?
It really depends on how much planning they've done in the first place. People can be taken by surprise by their own retirement.
Yes,
and you see people who perhaps through redundancy or something like that really don't have any notice of when it's going to happen. And that's really traumatic for people, because it's very hard to deal with that kind of unexpected.
Because you're blindsided.
You're blindsided, exactly. Whereas if you have the leisure, if you like, to put the plans in place, to think about it as I say, a transition, that's something that needs to be managed and can be managed if you put your imagination into it and do your planning properly. And, you know, you've got 24/7, 365. It sounds very daunting. One of the first things you've got to remember is that that's your 24/7, 365. And don't be fooled into giving part of it away because somebody wants you to mind their cat or their granny or whatever it is. The message is, if you're going to be part of a care plan, get into it on terms you'll be able to live with in a year's time.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the things that people get time stolen from them.
Yes, they do.
You know, time that they should be using for themselves, for their family, to spend more time with their family, or to, you know, or even spend more time with their dog if that's what they want to do.
Yes.
But the whole point is that it is your time. You use it productively, and you try always to give yourself a challenge, give yourself something that will produce something at the end, something that you'll have something to show for in your plan, and that you can use the experience, the expertise, the knowledge that you've gained over a whole career to improve your whole situation in retirement. Because that's what it's about. It's using that knowledge also, not just for yourself, but perhaps for the benefit of other people. Because there's loads of people out there, charities and so on, who would love to get the expertise that you can offer.
Yes.
And I know
people often don't value what they bring to the table themselves.
I'm on the board of a couple of charities, and I know that if I could get someone to revamp the website without having to pay through the nose for it, I'd eat their hand off.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So don't forget the expertise that you've built up, the knowledge that you've built up, what you've got to offer in retirement, because it's out there and people will value it. There's no doubt about that. And the other thing to remember is that once you get over 66, you're exempt from PRSI. So now, an employer who takes a 66-year-old in is going to save about 11.25% because they pay a token 0.5% PRSI and you pay nothing.
Great deal.
Great deal. You're very attractive to a prospective employer.
Thank you very much. Kellyanne, for those who are organised, they can have more than one pension. Should they retire them all at the same time?
Well, again, there's not always just one retirement day these days. Sometimes people reduce their working hours or they go into other employment. So it's really looking at what they need and when they need it. So I would encourage people to keep their pension pots separate, and then when we get to retirement, we'll look and see, and you stagger the release of those funds, because there's tax disadvantages to taking all your money at once, especially again if you've got a second employment.
I'm going to ask a last question. I'm going to ask it of everybody. Pension Awareness Week is all about practical actions people can take to improve their financial futures. With that in mind, I'd like you all to give me one action our viewers can take after they finish watching this session to prepare for retirement. One action, Paul.
Step back, do a skills audit and plan.
Okay. That's a lot of homework actually, isn't it? Yeah.
A heck of a lot of homework.
Yeah.
But just be conscious of what you're good at, what
Yes.
you're interested in, and what you can give in retirement, because that's what it's about. It's being able to give back, perhaps.
And recognising your own value.
Yeah.
Alan, what would you do? What's the one
A
piece of
little bit
advice?
easier. Life gets better with age. So go on to standardlife.ie and look at the retirement chats. These are just people telling real stories about how they retired and the benefits of it and what they experienced. And just sets you up in the terms of some of the things you need to consider. As far as I'm concerned, you just need to start that journey and then talk to a financial advisor.
What's the name of the website again?
Standardlife.ie.
Okay. You'll be inspired.
You will be inspired. True stories.
Kellyanne, what would be the one piece of advice you would give
I
people?
would tell them to pull out those benefit statements that pop in the post every year and they don't know what they mean, and bring them to somebody. Bring them to a qualified financial advisor or a retirement planning advisor or a certified financial planner. There's different people out there that are suitable for people's needs. Bring them and get someone to explain them and just learn what they means and what it means to them, what their pot is today.
So you know what you have.
So you know what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and take away the surprises.
Yes, because you can be blinded with science, can't you? Declan, last word.
And as part of that exercise that Kellyanne mentions, I think it would be important to contact the revenue up in Sligo and find out what your social welfare position is prior to having that meeting with the financial planner, and come fully armed with that information so that you can give the financial planner the wherewithal to make a proposal going forward.
Thank you so much, all of you, Paul, Alan, Kellyanne and Declan. We want to help you take charge of your pension, but that is easier said than done, as we're learning. If you've heard something today that triggers you to think you'd like to take action, the Pension Awareness team are on hand with practical ways so you can do it in a few different ways. There are options on the website that allow you to take action today, as well as complimentary one-to-one sessions from Pension Awareness Week partner MoneyCube.ie for the next little while. That's all we have time for, so it only remains for me to thank our panel again for their involvement, their contribution, and to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. There are lots more events through the remainder of Pensions Awareness Week, and you can still register for them or watch the sessions that have already taken place. Coming up after this session in the next studio is a talk with Irish Times columnist and retirement coach Brian Mooney, who's giving a coaching session on rediscovering yourself in your second life with Ryan Tubridy. And we close out Pensions Awareness Week tomorrow with Ryan hosting a panel on company pensions for SMEs. But from us, for now, thank you and goodbye.